Hello, everybody. Welcome to Talk About House. I'm Todd.
I'm Juana.
Okay, once again, we called it right here on this show. Literally a month or two ago, we said that there is no way the lending institutions would give up business because of this commission settlement, right?
Right.
Okay, this is a thing that just came out today. GSEs will not count buyer agent commissions in cap on seller concessions. Fannie and Freddie issued guidance on Monday, echoing sentiments already shared by FHA Commissioner Julia Gordon. What does this mean that they're not counting buyer agent commissions in the seller commission cap?
Okay, so that means that if you are a buyer and the seller is not paying the buyer's agent, so the buyer has to pay the buyer's agent, the buyer can say, hey, Mr. Seller, I need 3% closing costs for my loan fee so I can get a loan. And then I also need you to pay 3%, whatever amount, to my buyer's agent for representing me. So that means that now all of that can be paid for by the seller as a seller concession, and it does not go, it doesn't defeat the loan, meaning they'll still qualify for the loan with those concessions, because even though those concessions exceed the normal 3%, which is usually the maximum amount of concessions that a seller can give a buyer, anything more than that, it violates their loan program and they can't have it.
Okay, so economically, nothing has changed. Like, it's baked in that there's buyer agent commissions being paid through the deal somehow automatically.
Right.
And just so because we're kind of stripping that out and making it a separate line item, it doesn't go against the cap.
Right. So the interesting thing about that is if the home is being sold through the MLS, now that's going to show up as a seller concession, as a global number. And this is really important because it has to do with values of homes, right? Because appraisers look at all that. So it's going to save the appraiser from having to call every time they want to use that property as a comparable when they're appraising other properties. They're going to be able to look at that and go, oh, I see that they paid this much in regular concessions and then this much toward commissions, or maybe just a global amount. We'll see, because this is all a work in progress. So MLSs right now are not set up to differentiate between those two types of concessions, but in time that they may be.
Here's a quote from the article. The announcement is similar to one made last month by the FHA. It's not a new rule, the corporation said, but rather a clarification that allows home transactions to continue as they have. The more time passes, it's starting to feel like nothing's going to change.
Right.
And this is why. Let me give you an example. You go take a listing, and let's just say the house is $500,000. And you tell the seller, he goes, look, I know the house next door to mine just sold for $500,000. And you go, you're right, it did. And he goes, but I don't want to pay the other agent. I just want to pay 3% to you, but I don't want to pay 3% to the other agent. You go, fine. But I'm letting you know right now, the house next to you that sold for $500,000, fill in the blank.
You can see that they paid the agent through the concessions. Here's where it shows in the MLS. So yes, they got $500,000, but they paid 3% toward the buyer's closing costs for their loan fees, and they paid another, 3 or 4% for their agent. And so really, that seller ended up with not $500,000, but $500,000 maybe minus 3, 4, 5, 6%.
Okay, so the bottom line is there are going to be real estate agents who sign agreements with their buyers. This is a new thing. Everyone is required by law. You have to have a buyer broker agreement.
Well, not by law, by the settlement agreement between NAR and the plaintiffs.
Okay, you have to have a buyer broker agreement to represent a buyer. You can't represent without the agreement.
Right.
Okay. So the agent goes, look, I don't want to pay you anything up front. Just get the seller to pay for it.
Right.
Okay. So you start calling. Now, remember, it's not advertised. So you have to start calling listing agents. Hey, we see you have a house for $500,000. My clients want to look at it. Are you cooperating? Do you think there'll be agents when you say, no, we're not cooperating, who say, we're just going to pass on your house and go for to other houses?
Well, I don't know if they're going to say that, but I think that's what they're going to do. There's a difference, right?
Okay.
They're going to say, thank you very much, hang up, next
Okay. But and this is also their clients, because their client's not just going to say, I mean, their client may write it in the offer.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, look, we'll pay 500,000, but we want 3% towards our, in addition, we want 3% towards closing costs to pay our agent.
Right.
If they weren't going to offer that.
Mm-hmm.
Economically, because we did a video a month ago where we talked about not the actual settlement, but the economic impact. That the economic model for real estate's pretty sound. It's basically how things work. This doesn't really change it. The only thing the model that's changed is you cannot advertise the commission to the buyer agent. Well, it doesn't prohibit sellers from paying the buyer agent.
You're right. I think two things are changing. One, the advertisement portion.
Okay.
And two, I think it's the transparency, right? I think it's much more apparent how much agents are getting paid and who's paying them, which it was always, I think, understood, but now it's going to be very much documented in the purchase offer.
Here's a quote from the article. What's changing? Nothing. And that's a good thing, according to NAR. NAR teamed up with the Mortgage Bankers Association last month to write a letter requesting that government-sponsored enterprises, Fannie, Freddie, and they basically, if you're trying to figure out who they are, it's almost all loans that you would get, unless you're buying a multi-million-dollar house and it's a jumbo. It's most loans are Fannie or Freddie backed. Continue to exclude seller or listing agent payment of buyer agent commissions from limits on interested party contributions. So the limit is excluded. So if the loan program says you can have up to 6% total contributions, you can get 6% plus another 3% or whatever, 2% or anything that's agents.
Right.
And it's excluded.
Right. Which is actually an opportunity for agents. So here's the opportunity, because that amount is excluded. So maybe before, agents in a particular market were getting paid, let's say 3%. Now the agent can say, hey, look, I'm really good at what I do, and I'm worth 4%. I'm going to save you money. I'm going to negotiate so hard for you. I'm going to get you all this other stuff that you wouldn't get with another agent. I'm worth the 4%. So now that agent can get that 4% because he's going to negotiate that 4% from the seller.
Here's another quote. That makes it easier for the current practice, what we're doing already, where most home sellers pay the listing agent commission, who in turn pay the commission of the agent representing the buyer, to continue. NAR and MBA, wrote NAR and MBA to Fannie, Freddie, and the FHA. So literally what they're saying is, there's a settlement over here, but whatever, we're not doing anything different. It's basically going to continue.
Well, I think it is different, but I think that there's more transparency regarding compensation. I think that there's an opportunity for really strong agents to actually increase their compensation. I also think that the fact that we will all have to use buyer-broker agreements is different, because in a lot of markets that's not customary. So I think those things are changing. So I think those things are changing for the better. I think that the transparency is good. I think that agents who excel at their craft should be compensated accordingly. So I think these are all good changes.
Now, there are people saying, no, the buyers will just pay small fees, $50 to show the house, $100 to write an offer. Like, do you think people honestly want to pay money up front for showings and for all these things, and then if they don't end up buying a house, they're just out the money? Or do you think they're just going to do this, like, I'll just pay you a commission when I buy a house and we'll pay it through the seller somehow or something?
I think it's pretty hard to pry money out of people's hands.
Okay.
So I don't, and they're not accustomed to paying for that. So it's
that's the important thing.
Well, I think it's like saying that, oh, I'm going to go test drive a car and I have to pay for that. It's like, what? I don't think so. I'm going to go to Neiman Marcus and go try on a dress, but I have to pay for that?
$10 each time you try on a dress.
I don't think so.
Why not?
So I think that we're not accustomed to paying for things until we actually purchase them. So because of that, I don't think you're going to see this a la carte model really do well. I think you will see some companies who will give it a shot.
Do you think they'll make money?
I
historically,
don't think,
they won't. The problem is, is it's not like they're going to be working 8 hours a day showing houses making $100 an hour.
Right.
They're going to maybe like, because most people are going to do it the existing way. They're just going to walk into a real estate brokerage and say, I'll sign a buyer broker. I'm buying a house in, whatever, Summerlin or Chula Vista or whatever. And they'll sign a buyer broker agreement, and the agent will just go find them the houses. And the agent will make a bunch of phone calls. Are you co-oping? Are you co-oping? Are you co-oping? And they'll come back and go, look, these 3 houses, they're off the market because the seller's not paying commissions. We'll just go buy the other houses.
Right.
Then the sellers are going to get upset, go, how come my house isn't selling? Well, you're not offering money to the other agent. Everybody else is in the market.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be fun to watch. But I think that there will be companies that will spring up and do some sort of a compensation for showing properties, because it's an opportunity, and people will try to seize on the opportunity and find a way to make money. Now, whether they're going to be successful and have staying power is left to be seen. You and I think that that's probably not the case. Yeah. But we'll see what fruit that bears. But I think that there will be companies that will give it a shot.
This is what I think they would do. I think they would say, okay, you write a check for $5,000. We're going to deposit that. We will deduct every time we show a house, write an offer, specific amounts. If we move forward with closing and we're able to extract 3% in commissions, we will deduct that amount that you've already paid and maybe refund that at the end of the transaction or something. But I don't think anyone, like, real estate agents aren't going to work for free forever.
No. So, and the thing to keep in mind that depending on the state, so for example, in Nevada, we have to have an accounting of everything that we do. So the idea that somebody's going to collect a $5,000 retainer and then charge against that, then that brokerage has to provide a statement, an itemized statement at the end of the month with everything that was deducted and that sort of thing. And that is an extra layer of complexity and expense. And I think most brokerages are not going to want to play with that at all. Like I said, will there be somebody who finds a business model that they want to do that with? Of course. But do I think that most brokerages will do that? No, I don't. I think that particularly with technology, I think there's an opportunity there, because you can certainly do a pay-as-you-go kind of thing, where maybe it's some sort of like an escrow account kind of thing, where every time you show a house, you click pay my agent and it pays, and that provides the accounting automatically. So all kinds of opportunities out there. We can't even begin to imagine them. We're just throwing out some things to kind of illustrate what could be, a year from now. Okay,
here's a quote from the article. How this connects to the commission's settlement. The settlement does not prohibit home sellers from paying buyer agent commissions.
Correct.
The letter from NAR and MBA explained, listing brokers and sellers can continue to offer compensation for buyer broker services. They just can't advertise them in the MLS. They can put them in showing time. Literally, the agents don't even have to call. They can just click on the link in showing time, and then it'll pop up and say if they're cooperating or not.
Right.
The only real difference is all of this will have to get written into the purchase agreement for sure, because it used to be the MLS guaranteed the buyer agent commission.
Correct.
So you can't just say, oh, you said you were going to, like if I call you and say, are you paying? You'll go, yeah, we're paying 2.5%. Perfect, thanks. And I write an offer. I've got to write that in there that you're paying this, because if you don't pay it, I have no recourse if it's not in writing.
Right. But, no matter where this is advertised, I think you're going to run into the same thing. It's no longer, there's no longer the protection of a guarantee. I think it's going to be, yes, we're co-oping when we're co-oping, this many bananas, but it depends on the offer. I think you're going to see that caveat. Yes, we're co-oping, but it depends on the offer.
Full price, it's 3. If it's anything less, it's 2.5. Buyer agents aren't going to like that because they're trying to get their client a deal. The client say, "Hey, I want to offer $475," and then you're like, "Oh, at $475, I only make 2%," right? And then what'll happen, I think, is the seller will be like, "Fine, I'll pay. You can have the house for $45,000, but I'm only paying 1.5% to your agent." And then the buyer agent's going to be like, look, he's only paying 1.5% to me. So either you have to pay the difference or they have to figure it out.
Right. So I think you're going to see that kind of worked out through the buyer broker agreement, because agents are going to have to put in the buyer broker agreement how much compensation they expect.
Yep.
So for example, an agent might put in the buyer broker agreement, I expect to be compensated 4%. And then they might put in additional terms, something along the lines of any compensation that is 2.5% or more fully satisfies this agreement. So it says So that basically protects the agent saying, hey, I would like to get 4, but anything over 2.5, you don't have to pay me the difference. So all kinds of different ways that agents can work this out. Look, agents are people like anybody else, and they are in business for themselves, and they will find a way to make a living. And so this will all sort of get worked out in the next few months. Now, keep in mind that there are other lawsuits that are happening, and this NAR proposed settlement is not a done deal. And even when it is a done deal, there are still other lawsuits out there that may still, over time, impact all of this. So this is going to be a while to get worked out.
There's a buyer agents are suing, saying the exact opposite. No. We paid all of the commissions, and we want the sellers to give us back the money that when we close the deal, we paid the commissions. So everyone's saying they paid the commissions.
Okay. Buyer agents are not suing, it's buyers.
No, it's buyers are suing.
Right.
And then, but this does, if it goes through, according to DOJ, it does cover all real estate brokerages that do under $2 billion a year that did under $2 billion a year in total sales. We just did under that. So we're counted in the settlement. We just under $2 billion in total sales for the year.
There you go.
So yeah.
All right.
But we called this, like, literally.
Absolutely.
If you watch our channel, and we've done 2 videos on this. We literally talked about this and said, I think it was Juana who said, look, these extra costs, the lenders are not just gonna, they're gonna find a way around this.
Right. And this is a good thing. So right now, the only big loan program out there that has not come out and said that they've got a workaround for all this is VA. And this is really important because we do have a lot of VA buyers out there, and these are our veterans, so these are very important people. So I know that that NAR is trying to work with the VA on this, and I'm sure that they will follow suit before too long and make some sort of accommodation.
I'll bet the VA says we have no problem if the seller pays buyer agent commissions, but the buyer can't pay buyer agent commissions, because that's how it is now. With a VA loan, the seller can pay the buyer agent, the buyer cannot pay their own agent any fees.
That's correct. But remember that the VA has changed their stance on so many different things, is that the borrower couldn't pay lots of things, and over the last few years, the borrower has been able to pay almost everything that a regular borrower has. Yeah. So it really wouldn't surprise me if they changed their stance on commissions too. Well,
I bought 2 houses with my VA eligibility, primary residences.
Yes,
so
but that was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, yeah.
So those have
actually
changed.
Back then, you had a card you had to keep, because none of this was electronic. It wasn't digital. You just had a piece of paper that was your VA eligibility. It was like on a card, and you couldn't lose it. You had to show it to the lender, and they go, okay, and then they would do the loan for you, just strictly based on a piece of paper.
Are you sure it wasn't a tablet that was chiseled?
It was chiseled, yeah. Flintstone was the guy that signed mine.
All right, well, that was fun. I hope you enjoyed the video. We kind of rambled, but we had some fun. Hope you had fun too. Please consider using our services if you're interested in buying or selling in Vegas or anywhere else. We will find you a great agent. And remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, share the video, leave us your real estate related comments. If you are a buyer and you have paid your own agent, please share your story with us. We want to hear about it. And we'll see you on the next video. Bye.
Bye.